Hello friends. In last lecture we discussed about the icebreaker activities. We all have understood how to write them. In this lecture we are going to learn this lesson, An Astrologer's Day, a very fine composition by R.K. Narayan. Line by line I will interpret each line so that you can get exactly what the line means to you. I hope you may get the things. So I will, without wasting time, start my lecture. The very first line is here. Punctually at midday, he opened his bag and spread out his professional equipments, which consisted of a dozen cowrie shell, a square piece of cloth with obscure mystic charts on it, a notebook, and a bundle of Palmyra writings. These four lines clearly indicate that every day at midday, without any fail, the astrologer would sit at his decided place with his professional equipments or the equipments which are required for his profession. Which were the required equipments? They were cowrie shells, a square piece of cloth, some mystic charts on it, maybe calendar, almanac, a notebook was also there, and a bundle of Palmyra writings. Palmyra, Palmyra is actually a palm tree, but in olden days it is said that uh, the leaves of palm trees were used for writing something. So it may be the same. His forehead was resplendent with sacred ash and vermilion. This line means he always applied sacred ash and vermilion on his forehead, and therefore it looked very bright, resplendent. And his eyes sparkled with a sharp, abnormal gleam, which was really an outcome of a continual searching look for customers. There was a spark in his eyes, and whenever we would look to him, or people would look to him, anybody could understand that that was a look always looking for, always means continual, always looking for customers, but which his simple clients took to be a prophetic light and felt comforted. But that was a gleam, that was a look which would which was taken by the clients or the customers uh, as if a prophetic light. Prophetic light, definitely prophetic means foretelling something about future or telling something about future. So people would take that look as a prophetic light and they felt comfortable, maybe after having a chat with him, after having a talk with him. The power of his eyes was considerably enhanced by their position placed as they were between the painted forehead and the dark whiskers which streamed down his cheeks. Here, whisker means mustache hair, the hairs of mustache, and they were streaming down this way. And very importantly, uh, the power of his eyes was considerably enhanced. That smeared ash and that vermilion and that whisker, all that had typically given a perfect look of that astrologer to this person, and therefore uh, it had enhanced the eye's position too. Even a half wit's eyes would sparkle in such a setting. To crown the effect, in addition to this, he wound a saffron colored turban around his head, and this color scheme never failed. he wound. Here wound means wound is a past tense of wind. So to crown the effect, he wound a saffron colored turban around his head. This color scheme never failed. It means every day the astrologer was seen in this perfect getup. His forehead sparkled with vermilion and ash, that sacred ash that sparkled light. Then saffron colored turban around his head. This was perfectly giving him a getup of an astrologer. So it was a perfect dress up of an astrologer. People were attracted to him as bees are attracted to cosmos or dahlia stalks. Definitely, he would possess some skills and techniques in order to attract the people, and they would also get attracted to him. He sat under the boughs of a spreading tamarind tree, which flanked a path running through the town hall park. Now, where he would sit, it has been given here. It is he sat under the boughs. Boughs means branches. Every day, punctually at midday, he would sit under a tamarind tree, and this was a tamarind which flanked a path, that is bordered, maybe edged path running that was running through the town hall park. It was a remarkable place in many ways. Now the place where he was sitting was absolutely uh, very significant, very remarkable, having many features. Now, why was it called a remarkable? It's given. A surging crowd. A surging crowd was always moving up and down this narrow road from morning till night. Now, let me tell you here, a surging crowd was always moving up and down this narrow road from morning till night, because this was a place always crowded with people from morning to night. A variety of trades and occupations was represented all along with its way. Variety of different kinds of tradesmen, different kinds of people doing different occupations had been there, sitting both the side of the way or the road. Who were they? Medicine sellers, sellers of stolen hardware and junk, magicians, and above all, an auctioneer. Auctioneer, that is agent of cheap cloth. I think whenever we discuss this kind of scene, immediately the market of any place, especially in Mumbai, Pune, Kolhapur, sometimes in our village also, flash before our eyes, because two things are here: sellers of stolen hardware and junk. We can find many sellers in such markets who sell some stolen things. Even we can find many auctioneer of cheap clothes, means many sellers who sell clothes at a cheap rate. Auctioneer is the agent who created enough din all day to attract the whole town. And what was their job? Throughout the day, they would make tremendous noise. Din means noise, in order to attract the customers. Next to him, in vociferousness, came a vendor of fried groundnut. Now, next to the astrologer was sitting a vendor who was selling fried groundnut, but he was selling those his groundnuts, making a loud noise for this. It is written here, being loud and noisy. Very noisy he was. Who gave his ware, and here ware means a thing. What was the thing he was selling? Fried groundnuts. Who gave his ware a fancy name each day, calling it Bombay ice cream one day, and on the next day Delhi almond, and on the third Raja's delicacy, and so on and so forth. And people also flocked to him, flocked, gather. So this vendor selling fried groundnuts was selling them by different names. Someday he would call it Bombay ice cream, someday he called it Delhi almond, someday he called it Raja's delicacy, that is tasty ware or tasty delicacy done by Raja. And therefore people would also attract to this, and they would flock around him in order to buy this. A considerable portion of this crowd dallied before the astrologer too, as as many of the people were flocking around different vendors and uh, auctioneer and other sellers. There were some people, or there was a considerable crowd of people which was hanging around the astrologer, and uh, dallied means just wasting their time. They were just hanging around, they were hanging around the astrologer too. The astrologer transacted his business by the light of a flare. Now transacted means what? Performed. And he performed his business by the light of a flare. Flare means flashlight, which crackled and smoked up. That flashlight was making a crackling sound and smoked up. Also, a smoke was coming up. Above the groundnut heap nearby, there was a groundnut put near to him. There was a heap of the groundnut, and that smoke was going up. So he didn't have his own light. He would transact his business with the help of the light of a flare which was near to him. Half the enchantment of the place was due to the fact that it did not have the benefit of municipal lighting. Now, this makes it clear that people selling their different wares, they were not getting any facility of municipal light. It was completely being done by their own light. The description is given further. The place was lit up by shop lights. One or two had hissing gas lights. जुन्या काळामध्ये असे hissing gas lights होते. Means they were making the hissing sound, therefore the hissing gas light. Some had naked flares stuck on poles. This means some people or some sailors were using the flares or the flash which were not covered properly, and they had tied on the poles. Some were lit up by the old cycle lamps, and one or two, like the astrologer, managed without lights of their own. Means there were some sellers who didn't have their own lighting. Instead, they would take the help of others' light. It was a bewildering crisscross of light rays and moving shadows. And because of all these lights, the marketplace had become a confusing grid or the web of two things: what? Light rays and moving shadows of the people. This suited the astrologer very well, for the simple reason that he had not in the least intended to be an astrologer when he began life. Now here the story takes a move. Somehow we try to get information about the life of the astrologer. The line indicates that he had not in the least intended to be an astrologer when he began life. It means what? Astrologer did not become astrologer by his own wish. Means something might have happened in his life, and he knew no more of what was going to happen to others than he knew what was going to happen to himself next minute. It was very clear that he was not a professional astrologer. He had become astrologer accidentally, and therefore it's a funny and very ironic that as he was unable to know what would happen in his own future, he had been there sitting to tell about others' future. So he was as much a stranger to the stars as were his innocent customers. Now, here stars means absolutely stars in the sky. And you know that astrologer read those stars and tell the future of someone, foretell the future of someone. But he actually didn't know or didn't have made the studies of the stars. So he was completely unaware about the innocent customers, the stars, their position. Still he was doing his profession. Why was it so? It is given, yet he said things which pleased and astonished everyone. Though he hadn't studied the stars, though he was not professionally astrologer, still whatever he was telling to the people, it was satisfying them, and even people were astonished by his replies. Astonished, surprised. That was more a matter of study, practice, and shrewd guesswork. It was just because of his study of the people, his more and more practice, and his perfect judgment of the people's mentality. Shrewd means very clever, good at judging the people. Some we have many people around us. All the same, it was as much an honest man's labor as any other. Though he was doing the job of astrologer, he was very honest, and he was dealing very honestly in his job, and therefore he deserved the wages. You know, wages about that money he earns from this wages he carried home at the end of the day. So, what has been said here, even though he was doing the job of astrology, he deserved, he was doing it very honestly, and therefore, whatever the money he earned, wages he earned from this, he deserved for that. So, we will stop.